I've been playing the absolute crap out of Palworld 1.0 instead of making videos, and after I got my level to around the mid 70s, I realized that I had ignored several systems that would have made the late game much easier. None of these feel urgent when you first unlock them, but the longer you wait, the more catching up you'll eventually have to do. This isn't a comprehensive list, just the ones that I feel are most important. So if there's a system that you think I missed, or you want me to go into more detail on one of the ones I do cover in here, just drop a comment below and I'll be sure to cover those for future videos. At level 14, you'll have the ability to unlock the PAL Essence Condenser, and I recommend that you do unlock it and build it as soon as possible. Condensing PALs provides huge bonuses around your base and in combat. You can condense up to 48 of the same PAL, and doing so provides a huge bonus to all of their stats. So regardless if you plan to use them in your party, around your base, for raids, or for expeditions, there is a lot of benefit to doing so. Again, you should start condensing as soon as possible and catching as many PALs as you can. Even though the experience bonus for catching PALs stop after you've caught 5 of them, I suggest you just keep catching them, even if you don't plan to use them immediately. This also applies to PALs that you'll use in your party or around the base that you know you're going to replace with better PALs later on, because these will still provide a lot of power for your expeditions later on. And we'll talk about expeditions again here in a bit. Just to give you an example of how important passives and condensing can be, I'm going to hop off this tower. I have a mega glider, and I'm going to show you how far I go just gliding with what I have. And then I'm going to introduce you to a PAL that you can catch really early, and when you fully condense it, it makes a huge difference in your gliding, which means you can explore the game a lot easier early on. So here I'm going to hop towards my base, use my glider, and watch how far I go, which is not going to be far at all. And I'm going to fast forward till I get to where I land. So here I am. You could just see my base over the ridge. You can't even see the tower. Here I am on the map. So I didn't really go very far. In fact, I ran out of stamina and just fell here. So let's do a quick comparison. Now I'm going to make the same jump with a fully condensed Celeray in my party. Take a look at these passives here. So Zephyr Glider is level 5. While in the party, it modifies the performance of the equipped glider and it prevents fall damage. So you can glide as far as you want without worrying about running out of stamina and dropping down and dying. Let's go. You can already tell that this is much faster. I have already gone way past where I landed with the last hop. Alright, this is where I landed. There's the tower. I almost made it all the way to the sanctuary here. If you look at the map, that's a pretty good distance, and that's just using a condensed PAL. I didn't use the grappling hook trick or anything to give myself some more speed. It's really, really nice. And you can tell I didn't plan this very well because I didn't have my usual party. Luckily I had a van worm with me, so otherwise I'd be swimming all the way back. And Celeray can be found early in the game. If you just walk this beach and catch as many as you see, there's a lot of them and you can get this PAL condensed pretty quickly. One last note on condensing is keep an eye out on your passives as you're condensing your PALs. You want to look for passives that will be beneficial for whatever role you have in mind for that PAL, but also don't stress about it a whole lot early in the game. It definitely becomes more important as things take longer to build and you progress through the game. But for example, I caught this lucky chickpea early in the game. It doesn't really have a whole lot of great passives regarding, ranch work and stuff like that. But I went ahead and fully upgraded it. What you don't want is to invest a whole lot of PALs into another PAL that has bad passives that will make it lose sanity faster or work slower or anything like that. Here's another example. Here's a Cativa I condensed really early. It has Artisan, so I really focused on this one. Serenity doesn't matter as much here. I don't care that it's a coward because it's not going to be fighting for me anytime soon. It was really just to do work around my base. You can change passives later in the game with the surgical table, but really the point here I want to make is when you're condensing, especially when you're early in the game, just be mindful of the passives. For example, I have these two Dazzy Knocks. This one has no passives. This one has a nice rainbow passive. I may not ever use this one on the base. I may want to use it for breeding or something later, but I would definitely not condense the rainbow passive PAL into the one with no passives. So just be mindful of your passives as you're condensing. I would be misleading you if I told you just to condense away without paying attention to that. They are important, so just keep an eye out for that. Very quickly before moving on, my YouTube data shows that only about 1% of the people that watch this video will actually be subscribed. That means 99% of you are watching, getting the information you need and moving on. That's totally cool. However, if you are getting value out of this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It costs you nothing and it means everything to me in helping me to grow my channel. Thanks again, and now let's move on. This next system won't take long to cover, but it is very important. You can unlock the PAL Labor Research Lab at level 19. And this is another thing that I suggest you build and start as soon as you can. The sooner you start your research, the more your future self will thank you down the road. I recommend you start with handiwork and kindling first. Focus on the leftmost side, but if you find that you're running low on materials or just don't have them at that time, move over to the next branch and start going down that until you can focus on your left side again. Don't make research speed a priority. There may be some beneficial things down the line, but focus on the left first and just work your way towards the right. I haven't even touched these for any of these branches, and I probably won't until I get everything else fleshed out. These small percentages may not seem like a lot, but they stack quickly and they make a huge difference. I started by alternating between handiwork and kindling. They're both really important, however, there is a big bottleneck that you'll start facing when you have to start making plasteel and things like that. Even with really good pals, some of these ingots you have to make take a really long time to smelt, so this adds up a lot. If you find that you're in a spot where you can't really upgrade your handiwork or kindling, I suggest moving on to mining. There's some really useful stuff in here, and you'll always need some kind of metal. There's some great upgrades for your expeditions, and really nice is that there is an increase to your crude oil extraction speed, which again you'll need for plasteel, and these oil extractors take a huge amount of power and they're really slow. So any increase to the speed means you need less extractors and you get it faster. And so to summarize this, start your research early, focus on handiwork and kindling. I recommend alternating between the two. If you get to a point where you can't research either one, focus on mining as like a third priority, and then anything else that you can cover. Watering and planting are important. That means you need less crops, you get it faster. And as you level up and get better things for your base, you definitely want to get better electricity generation, consume less power. I haven't gotten to this yet, but your power storage is important. The only two I don't focus on as much is cooling and medicine production. You get a lot of medicine just playing the game anyway, and if you're taking care of your pals, you'll find that they aren't really getting hurt very often. Just keep them well fed, keep them happy. I've started going down the cooling route just because I have the furnace that requires it now. But again, cooling's not a huge priority. I was just at a point where I couldn't really upgrade anything else except for cooling, and I found out I was finally using it, so that's why I went down that route. A good rule of thumb is just always have some kind of research going. At level 22, you can unlock the PAL Expedition Station, and do I need to say it? Unlock it and build it as quick as you can. This is an enormous structure, however you can build some of it outside the boundary of your base, and I suggest you push it as far outside the boundary as you can. Think of it this way, you have lots of PALs sitting in your PAL box that are contributing nothing, and hopefully lots of them are fully condensed or at least have a few levels in condensing. These condensed PALs and the research that you do will provide huge bonuses to what you get from these expeditions, and they are very important. You'll see here I got 11 ancient civilization cores. These are very important later in the game. Just like research, you should always be running expeditions behind the scenes. If you're away from your base doing anything, have an expedition going. Also, be sure to take advantage of the expedition exclusion settings. These allow you to choose pals that you don't ever want to go on expeditions. That way, if you're switching in between parties and you have some pals that you like to use, but they're in the pal box, the game doesn't throw them into an expedition and you end up not being able to use them for quite a while. Next up is fishing. You can unlock the beginner fishing set at level 15. Do so and start fishing. In fact, what I would suggest is whatever you have going on in the game, take a break from that, take your fishing pole out, and just start fishing wherever you can. You don't need a crazy setup to get started. Just find a fishing spot like this, look for a shadow that has sparkles, and just cast. Fishing gives you a great opportunity to get alpha pals. So here I got several ancient civilization parts, 6 precious entrails, and 2 diamonds. That's money right there. Don't worry too much about your bait starting out, and be sure that you keep your poles upgraded as you level. When you get to level 62, you unlock the powerful fishing magnet, and this lets you finally start to salvage that debris you find floating around the map. If you see a gold color on the barrels, that means it's a really good spot to salvage. When you can start salvaging, it's way easier than fishing. Just hit F when you get to that green area on the circle, and look at what I unlocked. All these dog coins, coralum oil, which is extremely hard to get, and some golden keys. You can also get some great schematics and things like that depending on where you're doing it at. This is the party that I use for my fishing trips. I have a fully condensed Gelroy, so this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about how important condensing is. Gelroy increases the items attained by salvaging by 95%. Gloopy is also fully condensed, and the capture gauge decreases 35% more slowly when I'm fishing. What this means is whenever you're fishing and that fish moves outside your green bar like that, then that capture circle above is going to decrease by 35% less. It may not seem like a big deal, but when you're in more difficult fishing spots, it makes a big difference. Next up is Walaska. As you can see, I have not fully condensed it yet. That's a work in progress of mine. However, while it's in the party, the fishing minigames start with a capture gauge increased by 7%. And as long as your barrels are overlapping, meaning that your green barrel is on the fish, the progress is going to increase by 7%, and that will get better and better the more I condense this. Honestly, this hasn't been a priority for me, simply because as you get better poles and get better at the mini game, you find that you're not losing fish very often. However, I will be condensing this just for the benefit. I also have Jelliette, fully condensed, so while it's in the party, it's going to increase the items obtained from fishing by 95%. Fishing and salvaging both give great things, and it's easy to do, so that's why I suggest you condense them. If I had to pick one to condense first for fishing, I'd go with Jelliette. I think it's easier to catch. By the way, if you're having trouble finding Gelroy, you could always breed it. However, there's a spot called Phantom Island you can fast travel to. It's a little bit higher level. As you see, these are in the 30s. However, several spawn on this island, so that's how I condensed mine. Instead of just fishing for them, travel to the island, unlock the fast travel spot, catch as many Gelroy as you can, and then just leave, let them respawn, condense what you have, and come back for more. The last one here I want to cover is I do have a fully condensed Gangler Ignis. It may not be the best for fishing. A lot of people like to just ride to Alaska. However, Gangler Ignis is pretty fast on the water. It doesn't provide any benefits to fishing. However, it just moves really quickly, and I like getting from point to point. I don't like wasting a lot of time moving around. Gangler Ignis also has some really nice work suitability. What I did is I caught it really early. It was pretty hard at my level, but with the kindling and watering it offers, it was really nice to have at base. It eventually got replaced by better pals, so I just kind of keep it in my party for fishing now. I forgot to mention that I also have Sleek Stroke on this Gangler Ignis, so that's part of the reason it's so fast. Even without it, it is a very speedy water pal. There are other passives you can give it. I haven't really bothered, but there are if you want to get into breeding. In fact, Gangler was such a pain to catch, I caught 2 of them and started breeding them as soon as I could. It was actually one of the first pals I bred, and it was super useful around the base and just super useful for fishing later on. So I definitely recommend you look at this as an early pal. By the way, I caught Angler along the coast here around this area, just swimming back and forth. It was super high level for where I was at the time, and all I had was like a beginner fishing rod. It was very hard. It was quite a fight, but if you're any good at the mini game and you really want a good pal early, go for it, man. By the way, when you get to the point that you're looking for a legendary fishing rod, this is where I found mine. It's right around here on the map, so it's west of the volcano, a little bit southwest of the Phantom Island I just showed you. Keep in mind the enemies here are around level 45, and there's a certain RNG aspect to the loot, so you may not get a legendary pole the first time you visit. I did, but there's no guarantee of it. So if you're in the market for a legendary fishing pole, you might check this spot out. You might have some luck and grab one of them. None of these systems are going to ruin your world if you ignore them, but Palworld definitely rewards starting them early. A little condensing, research, fishing, and expedition progress along the way is way easier than trying to build all 4 systems from nothing when you're already struggling with late game content. Only a small percent of you that watch this video are actually subscribed, so if you got value out of this video, please consider subscribing, liking the video, dropping a comment, and I'll be sure to create more Palworld content if you like it. Thanks for watching.